January 19th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Silverpoint Lodge, Rocky Mountains, Colorado.
The mountain exploded with a sound that wasn't sound at all. Riley Morgan felt it first, a vibration that started in her chest and spread through her body like electricity. She sat up in bed, her heart hammering, her hands pressed flat against the wooden floor. The whole building was shaking. Through her window, she saw the impossible, a wall of white, massive and alive, rolling down the mountain toward them. She opened her mouth and screamed, but she couldn't hear her own voice. She never could. Riley was 8 years old and completely deaf. But tonight, she was the only person in Silverpoint Lodge who heard the mountain's warning in time. Before we dive into how one deaf girl and a white wolf saved 40 people from certain death, hit that subscribe button if you love real stories of courage and survival. Drop a comment with what time and city you're watching from. Now, let's go back to where this incredible story began. 3 days earlier, the Morgan family minivan crawled up the snow-packed mountain road towards Silverpoint Lodge. Riley sat in the back seat, her nose pressed against the cold window, watching pine trees blur past. She felt the engine's vibration through the seat, felt her father's frustrated sighs as he navigated another hairpin turn, felt her mother's nervous energy radiating from the front passenger seat. Her older brother Jake, 12 years old with messy brown hair and a phone permanently attached to his hand, sat beside her. He nudged her shoulder and signed, "You okay?" Riley nodded and signed back, excited. She was excited. This was their first real vacation in 3 years. Her parents, Beth and Tom Morgan, had saved for 18 months to afford this winter getaway. A week at Silverpoint Lodge, a historic resort tucked deep in the Colorado Rockies, far from Denver's noise and crowds, far from the constant challenges of navigating a world built for people who could hear. Beth Morgan turned around from the front seat, her kind face framed by auburn hair going grey at the temples. She signed to Riley, "Almost there, sweetheart. 10 more minutes." Riley smiled. Her mother had learned American Sign Language the day after Riley's diagnosis, 6 years ago. The doctors had called it profound sensorineural hearing loss. Beth had called it unacceptable that her daughter would face the world without her mother's voice, so she learned a new language. Her father Tom had taken longer, his large engineer's hands clumsy at first, but patient practice had made him fluent. Jake had learned fastest of all. He signed to Riley now, "I heard there's good sledding here. We can build a snow fort." "Promise?" Riley signed. "Promise," Jake confirmed, and meant it. He was the best big brother anyone could ask for. Sometimes overprotective, always present, never treating Riley like she was fragile just because she couldn't hear. The minivan rounded a final bend, and Silverpoint Lodge appeared through the falling snow. Riley's eyes went wide. It was beautiful. A massive log structure 3 stories tall, with a stone chimney releasing grey smoke into the white sky. Warm light glowed from dozens of windows. A wooden sign near the entrance read, "Silverpoint Lodge, Est 1892, where mountains meet heaven." Tom parked in the snow-packed lot alongside 20 other vehicles. Families were unloading luggage, children running in circles, their breath fogging in the frigid air. The temperature read -15 degrees Fahrenheit. Riley felt the cold immediately when she opened her door, sharp and clean, stealing her breath. A woman emerged from the lodge's main entrance. She was elderly, maybe 65, with silver hair pulled back in a braid, and eyes so blue they seemed to hold pieces of the winter sky. She wore a thick wool sweater and moved with the confident grace of someone who'd spent her entire life in these mountains. "Morgan family?" she called out, then caught herself when Beth quickly signed to her. The woman's face softened with understanding. She walked directly to Riley and bent down to her eye level, speaking slowly and clearly so Riley could read her lips. "Hello, Riley. I'm Martha Hendricks. I own this lodge. I'm very happy you're here." Riley smiled. Martha's face was kind, her eyes genuine. Riley had learned to read people through their expressions, their body language, the small truths their faces couldn't hide. Martha Hendricks was good people. Martha straightened and addressed the whole family, making sure Riley could see her face. "You're in the Cedar Suite, second floor. Dinner is at 6. Breakfast starts at 7. If you need anything at all, you find me." She looked directly at Riley again. "That goes especially for you, young lady." They carried their bags through the lodge's heavy wooden doors into warmth and wonder. The main room was enormous. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, flames crackling and dancing. Leather couches and thick rugs created cozy spaces. Mounted animal heads decorated the walls. Deer, elk, even a massive moose. Riley studied them, fascinated by their frozen majesty. Other guests filled the space. A young couple by the fire, an elderly man reading a newspaper, 3 children, roughly Riley's age, running past in a blur of laughter she couldn't hear, but could feel in the floorboard's vibrations. A group of college-age kids clustered around a table playing cards. Beth signed to Riley, "What do you think?" "It's perfect," Riley signed back, and she meant it. Their suite was spacious, 2 bedrooms connected by a sitting area with its own small fireplace. Jake claimed the couch in the sitting room. "More space," he explained to Riley through signs. "You take the room with the window view." Riley's room overlooked the forest. Through the large window she could see pine trees heavy with snow, the mountain rising behind them, and in the distance, white peaks that seemed to touch the sky. She pressed her hand against the cold glass and felt the wind's vibration outside. That first afternoon passed in comfortable routine. They unpacked, explored the lodge, met other guests. Dinner was served family-style in the main dining hall. 43 people total staying at the lodge, Martha announced. A diverse group, young families, retired couples, a few solo travelers seeking solitude. Riley sat between her parents, watched people's mouths move with conversations she couldn't access. She was used to this feeling of being on the outside looking in, but she didn't mind, not really. She had learned that silence gave her different gifts. She noticed things others missed. The way that young mother at the next table kept glancing at her fussy baby with worried eyes. The way the old man in the corner ate his soup with hands that shook from more than age. The way Martha moved through the room, watching everyone with protective attention. After dinner, Tom took Riley outside for a short walk before bed. The cold was shocking, but Riley loved it. Snow crunched under her boots. The air tasted clean. Above them, stars filled the sky in impossible numbers. Tom stopped walking and signed to Riley. "Look up! See that?" The northern lights. Ribbons of green and blue dancing across the darkness. Riley had never seen them before. She stood transfixed, her neck craned back, watching colors flow and shift like liquid music made visible. Tom put his hand on her shoulder. Riley felt his pride, his love, radiating through that simple touch. Her father might not be perfect at signing, might struggle sometimes to communicate everything in his heart, but he never stopped trying. That was enough. That was everything. They walked back toward the lodge, following their own footprints in the snow. That's when Riley saw it. Movement in the tree line. Something large, something white, watching them from the shadows. Riley grabbed her father's arm and pointed. Tom squinted into the darkness. "I don't see anything, honey. Probably just snow falling from the trees." But Riley knew what she'd seen. Eyes. Blue eyes, bright and intelligent, fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Not threatening, not dangerous, just watching her specifically. The moment passed. Whatever it was disappeared into the forest like smoke. Tom guided Riley back inside, signing about hot chocolate and warm beds. But Riley kept looking back over her shoulder, searching the tree line. Something was out there. And somehow, impossibly, she felt like it had been waiting for her. That night, Riley couldn't sleep. The bed was comfortable, the room warm, but restlessness thrummed through her body. She climbed out of bed and padded to the window. The lodge grounds were dark except for security lights casting yellow pools on the snow. The forest beyond was complete blackness. Then she saw it again, the white shape emerging from the trees. It moved into a patch of moonlight, and Riley's heart nearly stopped. A wolf, the most beautiful wolf she had ever seen. Its fur was pure white, like fresh snow, like starlight. It was massive, easily twice the size of the wolves she'd seen in zoo photographs, and it was looking directly at her window, at her. Riley pressed her hand against the glass. The wolf tilted its head, an eerily human gesture of curiosity. For a long moment they simply studied each other, girl and wolf, 8-year-old child and wild predator, separated by glass and impossible understanding. Then the wolf turned and walked back into the forest, its white fur fading into darkness. Riley stayed at the window for another hour, but it didn't return. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her back to bed. She dreamed of running through snow with something large and white beside her, keeping pace, protecting her. She dreamed of mountains falling and a voice that wasn't a voice, warning her to run. She dreamed of vibrations that meant danger, that meant love, that meant something her waking mind couldn't translate. The next morning dawned clear and brutally cold. -20 degrees, Martha announced at breakfast. Too cold for most outdoor activities, but perfect for inside games, reading by the fire, and family time. Riley spent the morning with Jake, building card houses that collapsed, and trying to teach him the game she'd invented, where you had to communicate without signing or speaking, only through facial expressions. Jake was terrible at it, which made them both laugh. After lunch, Tom approached Riley with an idea. "Want to build a snowman? Just us two?" Riley signed enthusiastically. "Yes!" They bundled up in layers, heavy coats, scarves, mittens, boots. Beth helped them, signing warnings about staying close to the lodge, not wandering too far, being back before dark. The sun set early this time of year. By 4:30, the mountains would be in shadow. Outside, the cold hit like a physical force. Riley's cheeks stung immediately, but her excitement overrode discomfort. Father and daughter rolled snow into balls, stacked them, found rocks for eyes and a fallen branch for arms. Their snowman was lopsided and strange, which made it perfect. Tom was packing snow around the base when Riley wandered away, distracted by something she'd spotted. Animal tracks in the fresh snow, leading into the forest. Large tracks, canine-shaped, but bigger than any dog. Her heart raced. The white wolf. She glanced back at her father. He was focused on the snowman, his back to her. Just a few steps into the trees, Riley told herself, just to see where the tracks lead. The forest swallowed her immediately. The difference was shocking. Outside the tree line, open space and light. Inside, dense pines and shadows. Sound became irrelevant. Riley had never had sound, but everyone else used it to navigate. Here, Riley felt a strange advantage. She navigated by sight, by intuition, by the feeling of space around her body. She followed the tracks deeper. 20 yards, 50. The lodge disappeared behind her. Still, the tracks continued, weaving between trees, heading up a gentle slope. Riley knew she should turn back, knew her father would panic when he realized she was gone. But something pulled her forward, a certainty that she needed to follow, that this was important. The tracks ended at the base of a massive pine tree. Riley looked up, searching for any sign of the wolf. Nothing. Just branches heavy with snow and grey sky beyond. Then she felt it, that vibration again. Not the ground this time. The air itself seemed to hum with a frequency she couldn't name but could sense in her bones. She turned slowly in a circle, scanning the forest. Where was it coming from? A flash of white. There. 30 feet away, partially hidden behind a cluster of saplings, the white wolf stood motionless, watching her. Its eyes were the blue of glacier ice, ancient and knowing. Its fur seemed to glow in the dim forest light. Riley should have been terrified. Every adult in her life had taught her that wolves were dangerous, were predators, were to be feared and avoided. But she felt no fear. Only a strange recognition, like meeting someone she'd known in another life. She took one step forward. The wolf didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. The wolf's gaze remained fixed on her face, reading her the way she read people, searching for truth beneath the surface. Riley signed without thinking, her hands moving in the international sign for friend. The wolf tilted its head again, that eerily human gesture. Then it did something that would change everything. It lowered itself to the ground in a play bow, the universal canine signal for, "I'm not a threat. Let's be friends." Riley felt tears prick her eyes. This wild animal, this magnificent creature, was treating her like an equal, like someone worth knowing. In a world where people often spoke around her, over her, without her, this wolf saw her, really saw her. She sat down in the snow, mimicking the wolf's posture. They regarded each other across 30 feet of frozen forest. Minutes passed, unmeasured and perfect. Riley felt a connection she'd never experienced before, a communication that transcended language, that existed in some deeper space where deaf and hearing didn't matter, where human and animal found common ground. Then she heard her father's voice, not literally heard, but felt. The vibrations of his shouting, distant but growing closer, frantic with fear. "Riley! Riley!" She stood quickly, brushing snow from her coat. When she looked back, the wolf was gone, vanished like it had never been there at all. Only the tracks remained as proof. Tom burst through the trees, his face pale with terror. When he saw Riley, relief and anger flooded his features in equal measure. He grabbed her shoulders, signed with sharp, jerky movements. "Never do that. You can't just wander off. What were you thinking?" "I'm sorry," Riley signed. "I saw tracks. I wanted to see where they went." Tom pulled her into a fierce hug. Riley felt his heart hammering against her cheek, felt his breath coming fast. "You scared me," he signed when he finally released her. "Don't do that again. Promise me." "I promise," Riley signed. She meant it. She hadn't meant to scare anyone. They walked back to the lodge together, Tom's hand firmly gripping Riley's. He lectured her through signs the whole way, about safety, about wild animals, about staying close. Riley nodded at all the right moments, but her mind was elsewhere, back in the forest, back with the white wolf who had bowed to her, who had seen her, who had created something between them that Riley didn't have words to name. That evening at dinner, Riley's family sat with Martha Hendricks. The lodge owner seemed to sense something in Riley's distracted state. She leaned forward and spoke slowly, making sure Riley could read her lips. "Did you see something special today, child?" Riley hesitated. Her parents were talking to each other, not watching. She nodded to Martha. Martha's blue eyes grew distant. "A wolf?" Riley's eyes widened. How did Martha know? The old woman smiled sadly. "This mountain has been home to a white wolf for longer than most people remember. Some say it's a spirit. Some say it's just an unusual animal. I've seen it myself, twice in 33 years of running this lodge. Both times before something important happened." Riley signed the question, knowing Martha probably wouldn't understand. But Martha's granddaughter, who worked in the kitchen, happened to pass at that moment. She was a college student, probably 20 years old, with her grandmother's blue eyes. She'd taken ASL courses. She translated for Martha. "What did the wolf do?" Martha asked through her granddaughter. Riley signed. "It bowed to me, like a dog playing. Not scared, not threatening, like it knew me." Martha's face grew serious. Her granddaughter translated her response. "The old stories say the white wolf is a guardian, that it appears when the mountain is restless, when danger is coming. It chooses one person to warn, one person who can understand." A chill ran down Riley's spine that had nothing to do with the cold outside. "Danger?" she signed. Martha patted her hand. "Just old stories, child. Nothing to worry about. But if you see the wolf again, you pay attention to what it's trying to tell you. Some truths don't come through words. Some truths come through feeling. That night, Riley dreamed again. The white wolf was running beside her, urgent now, desperate. They were racing through snow toward the lodge, but something was chasing them, something enormous and unstoppable. The mountain itself was coming alive, falling, roaring, swallowing everything in its path. She woke with a gasp, her heart racing. The room was dark. Her clock read 2:17 a.m. She went to the window and looked out at the moonlit forest. The white wolf stood at the tree line, staring up at her window. Riley pressed both hands against the glass. The wolf lifted its head and howled. She couldn't hear it, but she felt it. The vibration traveled through the building's frame, through the glass, into her palms. It was a warning, a cry for attention. Something was wrong. The mountain was wrong. Riley didn't know how she knew, didn't have the vocabulary to explain it. But every cell in her body screamed danger. The wolf knew it too. She stood at that window until the wolf finally turned and disappeared back into the forest. When she climbed back into bed, sleep wouldn't come. She lay awake, feeling small tremors in the building that no one else seemed to notice, watching shadows on her ceiling, wondering what the white wolf was
trying to tell her. The next day would bring answers. Terrible, wonderful, life-changing answers. But for now, she simply lay in darkness, listening with her body to messages the mountain was sending, preparing for something she couldn't name but could feel, building like pressure before a storm. Outside her window, snow began to fall harder. The wind picked up, and somewhere on the mountain, deep in the snowpack, tiny fractures began to spread, invisible and deadly, counting down to catastrophe. January 18th, 2024, 8:30 a.m. The temperature had dropped to -25 degrees. Riley sat at breakfast with her family, pushing scrambled eggs around her plate. She hadn't told anyone about seeing the wolf at her window in the middle of the night. Who would believe her? Even Jake, her best friend in the world, would think she'd been dreaming. But she knew what she'd felt. That vibration. That warning. Martha moved through the dining hall, refilling coffee cups and chatting with guests. She paused at the Morgan table and spoke directly to Riley, her lips clear and deliberate. "How did you sleep, sweetheart?" Riley signed, "Not well," and Martha's granddaughter Emma, who was serving breakfast, translated. Martha's expression grew concerned. "Bad dreams?" Riley nodded. She didn't mention the wolf, not with her parents watching. Martha patted her shoulder. "Mountains can be restless at night. All that snow settling, all that weight shifting. Some people are more sensitive to it than others." She looked meaningfully at Riley. "Listen to what your body tells you, child." After breakfast, Beth suggested a family game day. Monopoly, card games, maybe a puzzle. The cold was too dangerous for extended outdoor time. Even the college kids who'd been planning a backcountry ski trip had postponed. The weather forecast predicted the temperature would stay below -20 for the next 3 days. But Riley felt restless, trapped. She stood at the main room's large windows, staring out at the forest, searching for white in the shadows. Other guests milled around behind her. She'd learned most of their names by now. The Andersons, a family of 5 from Texas with 3 loud boys. The Chens, an elderly couple celebrating their 50th anniversary. Marcus Webb, a solo traveler in his 30s who spent most of his time reading by the fire. The Kowalski family, with their twin daughters. The group of college students, 8 of them, here for winter break adventure. Everyone seemed content, relaxed, unaware of the tension building in Riley's chest. She pressed her palm against the cold window glass and felt it again. That strange vibration, like the building itself was humming at a frequency only she could detect. Tom approached and signed, "Want to learn chess? I brought a set." Riley forced a smile. "Okay." They set up at a table near the fire. Tom was patient, explaining each piece's movement, but Riley couldn't focus. Her attention kept drifting to the windows, to the forest beyond, to the feeling of wrongness that grew stronger with each passing hour.
Around 11 a.m., Emma Hendricks approached their table. She signed directly to Riley. "My grandmother wants to show you something. If your parents say it's okay." Beth and Tom exchanged glances.
"Show her what?" Tom asked. Emma spoke aloud while signing the lodge's history room, old photographs, stories about the mountain. "Grandma thinks Riley might find it interesting." It seemed harmless enough. Beth nodded. "We'll be right here if you need us." Riley followed Emma through a door behind the main desk, down a hallway she hadn't explored yet. They entered a small room lined with shelves, filled with leather-bound books, framed photographs, and artifacts from the lodge's 132-year history. Martha sat in a worn leather chair, a large album open on her lap. She gestured for Riley to sit beside her. Emma stayed close, ready to translate. Martha pointed to a black and white photograph from 1958. It showed the lodge in winter, much as it looked now. But in the foreground, clear as day, stood a large white wolf. "My grandfather took this picture. He saw the wolf 3 times in his life. He said each time came before an avalanche." Riley's eyes widened. Martha turned the pages. More photographs. 1973, another white wolf, this time with a note written beneath. "2 days before the North Ridge collapsed, Wolf warned us. Evacuated in time, no casualties." 1989, another picture. The wolf standing on a rock outcrop, mouth open in what was clearly a howl. The note read, "January 15th, avalanche struck, January 17th. East wing damaged but empty. Wolf saved lives again." Martha closed the album and looked directly at Riley. Emma translated her words carefully. "My grandfather believed the white wolf was connected to this mountain in ways we don't understand. That it could sense instability in the snowpack. That it tried to warn people, but most people couldn't hear." Riley signed slowly. "But I'm deaf. How could I hear better than people who can hear?" Martha smiled. "Because you listen with your whole body, child. You feel vibrations others miss. You notice changes others ignore. The wolf chose you because you can understand its language. Not words, not sounds, something deeper." Emma's face was serious as she translated. "Grandma, are you saying you think something's going to happen?" Martha stood, moved to the window. "The snowpack this year is the heaviest I've seen in 40 years. We've had storm after storm, layer upon layer of snow. The temperature keeps swinging, freezing and thawing, creating weak layers. The conditions are perfect for a major avalanche. And the wolf is here, which it only comes when danger is near." Riley felt her heart pounding. "Should we leave? Should everyone leave?" Martha shook her head. "The ski patrol has done assessments. They say the slope above us is stable. Silverpoint Lodge has stood for 132 years. We've survived every storm, every avalanche. We're protected by the ridge formation." She paused. "But I learned long ago to trust the wolf over human experts. My grandfather did, and it saved his life 3 times. So what do we do?" Emma signed for her grandmother. "We watch. We wait. We pay attention. And if the wolf gives a clear warning, we listen." Martha looked at Riley with fierce intensity. "That's why I'm telling you this, child. You're the one it's chosen. If the wolf tells you danger is coming, you make people listen. You make them evacuate. Even if they think you're crazy. Even if they don't want to believe. You trust what you feel." Riley left the history room with her mind spinning. She wanted to tell her parents, but what would she say? A nice old lady told me to watch for a magic wolf? They'd pat her head and tell her she had an active imagination. The afternoon dragged by. Riley tried to play games with Jake, tried to focus on a book, but the restlessness built inside her like pressure. The other lodge guests seemed oblivious. Children played, adults read, the college kids started an intense game of Pictionary that got loud and competitive. At 3 p.m., Riley went to her room to be alone. She stood at her window, scanning the forest. The white wolf appeared within minutes, as if it had been waiting for her to look. It stood at the tree line, motionless, watching. Riley placed both hands on the window glass. The wolf took 3 steps forward, stopped, looked back over its shoulder at the mountain behind it. Then it looked at Riley again.
The message was clear. Danger comes from above. Riley grabbed her notebook and a pencil. She drew quickly, trying to capture what she felt. The mountain, the lodge, waves of snow crashing down. She drew the white wolf in the foreground, its mouth open in warning. She drew herself at a window, hands pressed against glass, understanding what no one else could. Jake knocked on her door, poked his head in. He saw her drawing and frowned. He signed, "That's dark. You okay?" Riley showed him the picture. "I think something bad is going to happen." Jake sat on her bed, his expression skeptical but concerned. "Like what?" "An avalanche. A big one." "Riley, the ski patrol checks the mountains every day. They'd know if it was dangerous." "But what if they're wrong?" Riley signed frantically. "What if the wolf knows something they don't?" Jake's face softened. "You really believe in that wolf, don't you?" "It's real, Jake. It's trying to warn us." Her brother was quiet for a long moment. Then he signed, "Okay, let's say you're right. What do we do?" Riley felt a rush of gratitude. Jake didn't dismiss her, didn't tell her she was imagining things. He met her where she was. "I don't know yet, but we need to be ready. If the wolf gives a clear warning, we need to get everyone out." "That's like 40 people, Riley. How would we even do that?" "I don't know, but we have to try." Dinner that night was lasagna and garlic bread. The dining hall buzzed with conversation Riley couldn't hear, but could sense in the vibrations of laughter, the movement of lips, the animated gestures. Everyone seemed happy, relaxed, enjoying their vacation.
Only Martha seemed to share Riley's tension. The old woman kept glancing at the windows, at the darkness beyond, her face lined with worry. After dinner, Martha made an announcement. She stood at the front of the room, speaking clearly. Emma translated for Riley. "Weather forecast is predicting another storm tomorrow night. Heavy snow, high winds. I want everyone to know our emergency procedures. Flashlights are in every room. Emergency supplies in the basement. In the extremely unlikely event we need to evacuate, I'll activate the alarm system. It's a loud siren plus flashing lights, so everyone will know, regardless of hearing ability." She looked directly at Riley when she said that last part. One of the college kids, a tall guy named Brad, laughed. "Why would we evacuate? This place is like a fortress." Martha's expression was stern. "Because nature is stronger than any fortress, young man. And arrogance has killed more mountain visitors than cold ever has." The mood shifted, grew somber. Beth reached over and squeezed Riley's hand. That night, Riley couldn't sleep again. She lay in bed, feeling the building's subtle movements, the wind's pressure against walls, the creaking of old wood settling. At 11 p.m., she gave up and went to the window. The white wolf was there immediately, as if it had been waiting. But this time, it wasn't alone. 4 other wolves stood behind it, smaller, grey and brown. A pack. The white wolf's family. Riley's breath caught. She'd read about wolf pack behavior. The alpha led, protected, made decisions for the group. This white wolf was clearly the alpha, and it had brought its pack to help deliver the warning. The white wolf howled. Riley felt it through the glass, through the building's frame, through her own bones. The other wolves joined in, a chorus of warning that vibrated the air itself. Then they did something extraordinary. The white wolf ran forward 20 yards and stopped, looked back at Riley, ran another 20 yards, stopped again. It was demonstrating something, showing her what to do when the danger came. Run. Don't stop. Keep moving. The other wolves fanned out, taking positions between the white wolf and some invisible threat, protecting the retreat route, working together. Riley understood the message. When evacuation happened, it would need to be organized. People would need to work together. The wolves were showing her how. This continued for 10 minutes, the wolves running mock evacuation drills in the snow. The white wolf, always leading, always checking back, making sure everyone stayed together. Finally, they stopped. The white wolf looked up at Riley's window one more time, its blue eyes glowing in the moonlight. Then, the pack disappeared into the forest.
Riley grabbed her notebook. She drew everything she'd just witnessed: the wolves' positions, their movements, the organization of their retreat. She didn't know if she'd need it, but some instinct told her to document everything. A soft
Knock on her door startled her. Jake entered, also in pajamas. He signed, "Couldn't sleep. Saw you at the window. What's happening?" Riley showed him her drawings. Jake's eyes widened. "You saw all of them? The whole pack?" She nodded and signed, "They were teaching me, showing me how to evacuate people if we need to." Jake sat on her bed, studying the drawings. "Riley, this is crazy, but also, I believe you. I don't know why, but I do. Will you help me? If the warning comes?" "Of course. We're a team." Jake paused, then added, "But we should have a plan. We can't just yell avalanche and expect everyone to follow us. We're kids. Adults won't listen." Riley thought hard. Martha will listen. She knows about the wolf. And Emma. If we can convince them, they can convince everyone else. "Okay, so if you see the wolf, give the final warning. We find Martha immediately. We don't waste time arguing with anyone else. We go straight to her." Riley nodded. It was a good plan. It might work. Jake stood to leave, then turned back. "Riley, I'm proud of you. Most people wouldn't pay attention to this stuff. They'd ignore the signs because it's easier. But you see things. You notice. That's going to save lives." After he left, Riley felt a warmth in her chest. Her brother believed her. That was enough to give her courage for whatever came next. January 19th dawned cold and grey. The predicted storm was building. Riley could see dark clouds massing over the peaks, feel the pressure change in her sinuses, sense the building tension in the air itself. At breakfast, the mood was subdued. The Anderson boys were whining about being stuck inside. Mr. Chen looked worried about the weather affecting their anniversary celebration. Marcus Webb sat alone, his book forgotten, staring at the windows with an expression Riley recognized. He felt it too. The wrongness. Martha approached Riley's table. "I need to show you something," she signed through Emma. "Come with me." They went outside, bundled in heavy coats. The cold was vicious, stealing breath, numbing exposed skin in seconds. Martha led Riley around the side of the lodge to a cleared area. "This is the emergency assembly point. If we evacuate, everyone gathers here. It's protected by that rock outcrop, away from the avalanche path." She pointed up at the mountain. "You see that slope? That's where the danger would come from. Thousands of tons of snow. If it breaks loose, it could reach the lodge in under 90 seconds. That's how fast we'd need to move." Riley's stomach clenched. 90 seconds. How do you evacuate 40 people in 90 seconds? "You can't," Martha said, reading her expression. "That's why we need advance warning. We need to get people out before the avalanche triggers. That's where the wolf comes in. Animals can sense changes humans miss, vibrations in the snowpack, shifts in air pressure. The wolf will know before any instrument." "When?" Riley signed. "I don't know, but soon. I feel it." The mountain feels it. The wolf definitely knows. Martha knelt down to Riley's level. "When it happens, you stay calm. You get to me immediately. We'll activate the alarm. People will think we're crazy at first, but we'll get them moving. Emma and I will handle the adults. You and your brother keep the children calm and moving. Can you do that?" Riley nodded, though fear coiled in her stomach. They went back inside. The morning passed in terrible anticipation. Riley stationed herself by the main windows watching. The white wolf didn't appear. That somehow made things worse. At noon, the first snowflakes began falling. Within an hour, it was a full storm, thick snow, driven sideways by wind. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The temperature plummeted to -30 degrees. "Well, we're not going anywhere now," Tom said, trying to sound cheerful. "Good thing we have games and food." But Riley saw Martha's face. The old woman looked terrified. This wasn't just a storm. This was the storm, the one that would overload the snowpack, the one that would trigger the avalanche. At 3 p.m. the power flickered.
The lights went out for 5 seconds, then surged back on. Nervous laughter rippled through the guests. "Just the storm," Martha announced. "Backup generator is ready if we need it." But Emma whispered something to her grandmother. Martha's face went pale. Emma approached Riley and signed. "The Weather Service just issued an avalanche warning for this region. High danger level. They're recommending evacuations for properties at risk." "But Ski Patrol said we were safe," Beth interjected, catching some of the conversation. "Conditions changed," Emma signed. "The new snow, the wind, the temperature swing yesterday. Everything combined to create perfect avalanche conditions." Martha stood on a chair to address the room. "Attention, everyone. I need you all to listen carefully. We've received an avalanche warning from the Weather Service. It's probably just a precaution, but I want everyone to gather their essential belongings and be ready to move to the emergency shelter if needed. Don't panic, but don't delay." The mood shifted instantly. The carefree vacation atmosphere evaporated, replaced by quiet fear. Families hurried to their rooms. The college kids stopped joking. Even the Anderson boys went silent. Tom gripped Riley's shoulder. "It's going to be okay. We'll follow the instructions." But Riley's heart was racing. She pushed through the nervous crowd to the main windows. Outside, the storm raged. The forest was barely visible. And there, at the tree line, was the white wolf. Standing in the blizzard, completely still, staring at the lodge. Their eyes met across the distance. The wolf lifted its head and howled. Riley felt the vibration, but this time it was different, stronger, more urgent. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was the final alarm. Riley turned and ran to find Martha. The old woman was in her office, talking on a satellite phone to emergency services. Riley grabbed her arm, pointed frantically toward the window. Martha followed her gaze and saw the wolf. Her face went white. "It's time," she whispered. Then louder, "Emma, activate the alarm. Everyone evacuate now." Emma hit the red button on the wall. Sirens wailed through the lodge, accompanied by flashing red lights. Martha's voice boomed over the intercom system. "This is not a drill. Everyone to the emergency assembly point immediately. Leave everything except coats and boots. Move now." Chaos erupted. People shouted questions, grabbed children, stumbled over each other. Riley felt the panic like a physical wave. She looked back at the window. The white wolf was running now, its pack surrounding it, demonstrating again. "This is how you move. Together. Organized. Don't panic." Riley grabbed Jake's arm and signed, "Children! We get the children moving first." They ran through the lodge, finding the Anderson boys frozen with fear, the Kowalski twins crying, a young girl named Sophie clutching her stuffed bear. Riley and Jake herded them toward the door, signing and gesturing, keeping them focused. Outside, the cold was paralyzing. The assembly point was 100 yards away, but in the blizzard, it felt like miles. Martha and Emma guided people, counting heads, making sure no one was left behind. Riley did a quick count. 38 people at the assembly point, 43 total in the lodge, 5 missing. She looked back at the building. 3 figures stumbled out, the Chen couple helping Marcus Webb, who'd twisted his ankle. 41 people now, 2 still inside. Martha was screaming into the blizzard, her voice barely audible even to those who could hear. Riley felt the vibration of her terror. Riley looked at the mountain above them. Even through the storm, she could see movement. The snowpack was shifting. They had maybe 60 seconds. She turned to run back toward the lodge, but strong hands grabbed her. Her father. Tom's face was fierce with fear. He was signing, "No, too dangerous." "2 people," Riley signed back. "2 people still inside." Before Tom could stop her, a white streak bolted past them. The wolf. It was running toward the lodge, its pack behind it. They reached the door just as 2 college students emerged, Brad and his girlfriend Sarah. They'd gone back for their laptops, their phones. Stupid, precious seconds wasted on things that didn't matter. The wolves surrounded them, physically pushing them forward, snapping at their heels when they moved too slow. The students stumbled toward the assembly point, the wolves driving them like sheepdogs herding flock. Everyone was out. 43
people at the assembly point. Riley felt it before she saw it. The vibration became a roar, became a living wall of white. The mountain was falling. Thousands of tons of snow breaking loose, accelerating, destroying everything in its path. "Run!" Martha screamed, though no one needed telling. The group ran, stumbled, carried each other away from the assembly point toward the rock outcrop that would shield them. The avalanche hit the lodge with the force of an atomic bomb. Riley felt the impact through the ground, through her bones, through her soul. The building she'd slept in, eaten in, felt safe in, exploded into splinters and dust. The wave of snow and debris washed past them, stopped just short of their position by the angle of the rock outcrop. Martha had chosen the assembly point perfectly. They were safe by less than 20 feet. When the roar finally subsided, when the snow settled and the air cleared enough to see, they looked back at where Silverpoint Lodge had stood for 132 years. It was gone, completely buried under 30 feet of snow. Nothing remained except the stone chimney, sticking up like a grave marker. Dead silence fell over the group. Then someone started crying. Then several people. The enormity of what had almost happened, what would have happened if they'd waited even 2 more minutes, crashed over them like a second avalanche. Martha's satellite phone rang. Emergency services were coming, but the storm made helicopter rescue impossible. They'd have to shelter in place until morning. But there was an emergency cache cabin a quarter-mile down the mountain road. Small, cramped, but warm and stocked with supplies. As the group prepared to move, Riley searched the forest edge. The white wolf stood watching, its pack beside it. Steam rose from their fur in the brutal cold. They had driven those last 2 people to safety. They had saved lives directly. Riley signed, "Thank you," knowing the wolf couldn't understand sign language. But the wolf tilted its head in that eerily human gesture of acknowledgement. Then it did something remarkable. It approached Riley, walking slowly through the deep snow, stopping just 10 feet away. The adults noticed, tensed, ready to protect her. But Martha held up her hand. "Let the wolf approach. It's earned the right." The white wolf came close enough that Riley could see her own reflection in its glacier blue eyes. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from its body. Close enough to smell the wild scent of pine and snow and ancient forest. For one perfect moment, deaf girl and white wolf stood together, connected by something that transcended every boundary humans had created. Connected by survival. By communication that existed beyond words. By the understanding that some relationships, the most important ones, happen in silence. Then the wolf turned and walked back to its pack. They watched until the humans began moving towards safety. Only then did the pack melt back into the forest, their job complete. Riley walked with her family, Jake's arm around her shoulders, her parents on either side. She was cold, exhausted, traumatized by what she'd witnessed, but also filled with something powerful and undeniable. She had heard the warning when no one else could. She had listened to the white wolf's message, and because of that, because a deaf girl had been the only one capable of hearing what mattered most, 43 people were alive who should have been buried under 30 feet of snow. The emergency cache cabin was built for 12 people maximum. 43 survivors crammed inside, bodies pressed together for warmth. The single wood stove worked overtime, but the cold still seeped through cracks in the walls. Outside, the blizzard continued its assault, wind screaming like something alive and furious. Riley sat wedged between her parents, Jake on her other side. She couldn't stop shaking, though whether from cold or shock she couldn't tell. Around her, people cried quietly, held each other, stared at nothing. The Anderson boys had finally gone silent, pressed against their mother's chest. The Chen couple sat holding hands, their anniversary celebration transformed into survival. Marcus Webb's ankle was wrapped in makeshift bandages, his face tight with pain. Martha moved through the cramped space, checking on everyone,
distributing emergency blankets and protein bars from the cabin's supplies. Emma stayed by the door, monitoring the satellite phone for updates from rescue services. At some point, Beth gently turned Riley's face toward hers and signed, "You saved us. You and that wolf. You saved everyone." Riley didn't feel like a hero. She felt small and scared and overwhelmed by how close they'd all come to death. She signed back, "I just listened." "That's exactly what saved us," Tom signed. "You listened when no one else could." Brad, the college student who'd almost gotten himself and Sarah killed, going back for electronics, approached the Morgan family. His face was filled with shame and gratitude. "I'm sorry," he said, making sure Riley could see his lips. "I was stupid. You were right to warn us, and I almost got us all killed being an idiot." Riley nodded acceptance. Words weren't necessary. Martha's satellite phone finally connected to emergency services. The conversation was brief. Emma translated for the group. "Helicopters can't fly in this storm. Search and rescue will reach us at first light, probably 8 or 9 a.m. Until then, we stay here, stay warm, stay together." 16 hours to wait. Riley looked around at the faces surrounding her. They were alive because of timing measured in seconds, because an 8-year-old deaf girl had paid attention to vibrations others dismissed, because a white wolf had chosen to communicate across the species divide. As night deepened, people began to talk quietly, sharing stories, processing trauma, building bonds that only shared survival could create. Riley watched their lips move with conversations she couldn't fully access, but she understood the emotions: fear, relief, gratitude, wonder at being alive. Around midnight, Emma approached Riley with her grandmother. Martha's face was serious as Emma translated her goods. "I need to tell you something, child. Something important about the white wolf." Riley sat up straighter, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. Martha continued through Emma's translation. "My grandfather kept journals, detailed records of every time he saw the wolf. He believed it wasn't just one animal living for decades. He thought it was a lineage, a family of white wolves, generation after generation, protecting this mountain." She pulled out a small leather journal from her coat pocket. "I grabbed this from my office before we evacuated. It's the most recent journal, mine and my father's entries combined. Look at this." She opened to a page dated 15 years earlier. A photograph was taped inside. A white wolf standing beside a young man in a ranger uniform. "That's my son David. He was a park ranger. He saw the wolf 3 times. The last time was the day before he died. The wolf warned him about unstable ice on the North Ridge. David evacuated a group of hikers, saved 7 lives. But he went back to set warning markers, and the ice gave way. He fell into a crevasse." Martha's voice caught. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she translated. "The wolf tried to save him. Rangers found tracks showing the wolf had stayed at the crevasse edge for hours, trying to find a way down. David's body was recovered 3 days later, and the wolf never appeared to anyone else. Not for 15 years. Until you." Riley felt tears sting her eyes. "Why me?" "Because you're special, Riley. Not despite your deafness, because of it. You experience the world differently. You feel things others miss. The wolf recognized that. My grandfather wrote that the white wolves only appear to people who can truly hear them. And hearing isn't about ears. It's about understanding." Martha closed the journal. David would be proud that the wolf chose you, that his legacy of protecting people continued through another generation. Riley thought about that white wolf standing in the blizzard, howling warnings no one else understood. She thought about David, Martha's son, who'd given his life to save others. She thought about all the ways people could communicate if they stopped relying on just one sense. The night crawled by. People slept in shifts, bodies intertwined for warmth. Riley dozed against her father's chest, feeling his heartbeat, feeling safe despite everything. She dreamed of running through snow with the white wolf beside her, both of them understanding that some connections transcend every barrier humans created. Dawn arrived grey and cold but clear. The storm had finally passed. Through the cabin's small window, Riley saw blue sky for the first time in 2 days. Within an hour, the rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors vibrated through the air. Search and rescue arrived in 3 waves. Medical personnel checked everyone, treating Marcus's ankle,
Checking the Anderson boys for frostbite, distributing warming blankets. News crews followed, cameras recording everything. A woman with a microphone approached Martha. Riley watched their conversation, unable to hear but understanding from body language that Martha was explaining what happened. Then, Martha pointed at Riley. The reporter's eyes widened. Emma translated as the reporter approached the Morgan family. "I'm Susan Crawford from Denver News 9. I'd like to talk to Riley about what happened, about how she knew the avalanche was coming." Beth started to refuse, protective instinct kicking in, but Riley touched her mother's arm and signed, "It's okay, people should know." The interview was conducted with Emma translating. Susan asked gentle questions, and Riley answered honestly, about the white wolf, about the vibrations she'd felt, about Martha's warnings, about trusting what her body told her, even when her mind said it was impossible. "So you're saying a wolf warned you?" Susan asked carefully, professionally neutral. "Yes," Riley signed, and Emma spoke. "The white wolf knew the mountain was unstable. It communicated that to me, not through sounds because I can't hear sounds, through vibrations, through body language, through a kind of understanding that goes deeper than words." The interview aired that evening on every major news network. By the next morning, Riley's story had gone viral. "Deaf girl hears wolf's warning, saves 43 lives," read one headline. "8-year-old's special ability prevents tragedy," read another. The Morgan family was moved to a hotel in Denver while investigations proceeded. Structural engineers examined the avalanche site. Wildlife experts tried to find the white wolf pack, but they'd vanished into the wilderness. Meteorologists analyzed the conditions that had created the perfect storm of avalanche triggers. Everyone agreed on one thing. If Riley hadn't insisted on evacuation when she did, everyone in that lodge would have died. The timing had been that precise. Riley became an inadvertent celebrity. Interview requests flooded in. Talk shows wanted her. Documentaries were proposed. The American Sign Language community celebrated her, pointing out that different abilities created different strengths, not disabilities. Through it all, Riley remained quiet and somewhat overwhelmed. She hadn't set out to be a hero, she'd just paid attention to something everyone else missed. 2 weeks after the avalanche, Martha invited the Morgan family back to the site. The snow had been partially cleared by investigators. The lodge's remains were visible now, broken timber and shattered stone buried under compacted snow. Martha stood at the edge of the destruction, Emma beside her. Riley approached with her family. Martha signed through Emma, her fluency improving daily. Insurance won't cover rebuilding. 132 years of history, gone in 90 seconds. But I'm not sad. Do you know why? Riley shook her head. Because the building was just wood and stone. The real heart of Silverpoint Lodge was the people who gathered here. And those people are alive because of you. Martha knelt to Riley's level. David saved 7 people before he died. You saved 43. You've honored his legacy better than I ever could. She handed Riley a small box. Inside was the leather journal, David's entries about the white wolf. This is yours now. Add to it. Document your experiences with the wolf. Someday, you'll pass it to the next person the wolf chooses. The tradition continues. Riley carefully opened the journal. David's handwriting was neat and detailed. March 15th. Saw the white wolf on the North Ridge. It circled 3 times and howled. Evacuated the hiking group immediately. The ice broke 12 minutes later. The wolf knew. It always knows. She turned the pages, reading entry after entry. David's respect and wonder for the white wolf came through in every line.
his understanding that something existed beyond human comprehension, his gratitude for being chosen to receive the warnings. Riley thought about adding her own entry later. January 19th. The white wolf saved 43 lives through me. It taught me that communication transcends hearing, that paying attention to what others miss can mean the difference between life and death, that being deaf doesn't mean I can't hear what matters most. Over the following months, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. The Morgan family went home to Denver. Riley returned to school, where she was treated like a celebrity by students and teachers alike. But the attention made her uncomfortable. She hadn't saved those people for fame. She'd done it because it was right, because the wolf had trusted her with critical information. She kept the journal beside her bed and read David's entries every night. She learned about his life, his love for the mountains, his respect for nature's power. She learned that he'd been deaf in one ear from a childhood illness, that he'd struggled with feeling different, that the wolf had chosen him partly because he understood what it meant to experience the world asymmetrically. In March, 3 months after the avalanche, Riley convinced her parents to take a day trip back to the mountains. They drove to an overlook near where Silverpoint Lodge had stood. The snow was melting now, revealing more of the destruction. Martha had decided not to rebuild. The mountain had claimed the land back. Riley walked to the forest edge, her parents watching nervously from the car. She stood in the pine shadows and waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. Maybe the wolf had moved on, its job complete. Then she felt it. That familiar vibration, that sense of presence. The white wolf emerged from deeper forest, moving slowly, deliberately. It was alone this time, no pack. Just Alpha and the girl it had chosen. They stood 20 feet apart, studying each other in the spring sunshine. Riley signed, "Thank you," knowing the wolf couldn't understand the gesture's literal meaning, but trusting it would understand the intent. The wolf tilted its head, that eerily human acknowledgement. Then, it did something new. It approached closer than ever before, close enough that Riley could see individual hairs in its white fur, could see the intelligence in those glacier blue eyes, could smell the wild scent of pine and snow and freedom. The wolf touched its nose to Riley's outstretched hand. Just for a moment. A connection, a recognition, a goodbye, or a promise, or both. Then it turned and walked back into the forest. Riley watched until the white fur disappeared into green shadows. She felt changed by the encounter, marked by something she'd carry forever. Back at the car, Beth signed, "Did you see it?" Riley nodded. "It came to say goodbye. Or maybe hello, I'm not sure." Tom put his hand on Riley's shoulder. "Whatever it said, you understood. That's what matters."
The school year ended. Summer arrived. Riley turned 9 years old with a party that felt both too big and too small. Too big because everyone wanted to celebrate the girl who'd saved 43 people. Too small because it couldn't capture the real gift she'd received, that moment of connection with something wild and wise. The American Association for the Deaf invited Riley to speak at their annual conference. Beth and Tom were hesitant, worried about putting too much pressure on her, but Riley wanted to go. She had something to say. Standing on stage in front of 3,000 people, Riley signed her speech while an interpreter voiced it. "Everyone asks me what it's like to be deaf. They ask if I wish I could hear. They ask if I feel like I'm missing something. Before the avalanche, I might have said yes. But now I understand that I'm not missing anything. I'm experiencing the world differently, and that difference saved lives." She paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. "The white wolf didn't choose me despite my deafness. It chose me because of it. Because I feel vibrations others miss. Because I notice details others overlook. Because I experience communication through touch and sight and intuition instead of just sound." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Being deaf isn't a disability. It's a different ability. And sometimes that different ability is exactly what the world needs.
We don't all have to experience things the same way. In fact, we shouldn't. Diversity in how we perceive the world makes us stronger, not weaker. She finished to thunderous applause, thousands of hands waving in the deaf community's version of clapping. Riley felt something shift inside her. She'd spent years wishing she could hear like everyone else. But the white wolf had taught her that her way of experiencing the world was valuable, was necessary, was enough. That fall, Riley started 4th grade with new confidence. She joined the school's environmental club and started learning about wildlife conservation. She checked out every book the library had on wolves. She learned about pack dynamics, about how wolves communicated through body language and scent and subtle behaviors that humans usually missed. She understood now why the white wolf had been able to communicate with her so effectively. They both relied on non-verbal information. They both paid attention to details others dismissed. They both experienced the world through senses that went beyond the obvious. In November, Riley wrote her first entry in David's journal. November 12th. The white wolf chose me because I was ready to listen. Not with my ears, but with my heart. It taught me that communication transcends every barrier we think divides us. That understanding happens in silence as much as in sound. That paying attention to what others miss can save lives. I hope I honored its trust. I hope if danger comes again, I'll be brave enough to speak up like I
did on January 19th. The wolf's legacy continues through me now, and someday I'll pass it forward to whoever the wolf chooses next. Martha called that evening. Emma translated. I wanted you to know that the governor is giving you the Colorado Citizens Medal for heroism next month. 43 people are alive because of you. The state recognizes that. Riley felt embarrassed. I just paid attention. That's exactly why you deserve recognition, Martha replied. In a world where everyone's distracted, where people ignore warning signs, where different abilities are treated as less than, you prove that paying attention, that being different, that trusting your instincts can change everything. You're a role model, Riley, whether you wanted to be or not. The medal ceremony was formal and overwhelming. Riley wore a dress her mother picked out. She stood on stage while the governor praised her courage and quick thinking. She accepted a medal she didn't feel she'd earned. She smiled for photographs that would hang in her school's hallway. But the real reward came later, after the ceremony ended. A woman approached the Morgan family. She was in her 30s, with kind eyes and a young son clutching her hand. The boy was maybe 5 years old, wearing hearing aids. The woman signed to Riley. My son Noah was diagnosed with profound hearing loss last year. We've been struggling with it, struggling to accept it. Then we saw your story on the news. We watched your speech at the Deaf Association conference. And Noah said something that changed everything for us. She turned to her son. Noah signed carefully, his young hands still learning the language. I want to be like Riley. I want to hear things other people can't. I want to be special like her. Riley felt tears prick her eyes. She knelt down to Noah's level and signed, You already are special. You already hear things others can't. You just have to pay attention and trust yourself. Noah smiled, his whole face lighting up. His mother mouthed, Thank you, and led him away. But the encounter stayed with Riley for days. She'd given that little boy something precious. Not just hope, but permission. Permission to be different and know that difference was valuable. December arrived with the first major snowfall of the season. Riley stood at her bedroom window, watching flakes fall, remembering another storm, another window, another moment when everything changed. She wondered if the white wolf was out there somewhere, watching over its mountain, waiting for the next person who needed its warnings. Her phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Grandmother wants to know if you'd like to come back to the mountains for a day. Visit the site. She has something to show you. Riley showed the text to her parents. Tom looked uncertain. Are you sure you want to go back? It might bring up difficult memories. But Riley signed firmly. I need to. It's important. 2 days later, they drove back to the mountains.
Martha met them at the new small cabin she'd built near where the lodge had stood. It was modest compared to Silverpoint's grandeur, but warm and welcoming. Martha led Riley on a hike through the forest, Emma translating. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached a clearing Riley recognized. This was where she'd first seen the white wolf, where it had bowed to her in greeting. "Look," Martha signed, pointing. In the snow were fresh tracks, large paw prints, canine but bigger than any dog. The white wolf had been here recently, maybe yesterday, maybe this morning. But there was something else, smaller tracks alongside the large ones, puppy tracks. The white wolf had offspring, the lineage continued. Riley knelt beside the tracks, touching them gently. The next generation was already being trained, already learning to read the mountain, already preparing to choose the next human who could understand their warnings. Martha handed Riley a photograph. It showed the clearing from a different angle, taken with a trail camera. In the image, clear as day, was the white wolf with 3 small pups playing around its feet. One of the pups was white like its parent. Pure white fur, blue eyes, already showing the intelligence and awareness that made these wolves special. "The tradition continues," Martha signed. "David protected people. Then the white wolf protected people through you. Now the next generation is learning. When you're older, maybe you'll teach that white pup how to communicate with humans, how to bridge the gap between species. The cycle continues forward." Riley studied the photograph. The white pup was looking directly at the camera, its eyes bright with curiosity. She felt a connection to it already. Maybe in 20 years, that pup would be the alpha. Maybe it would choose someone else who needed its warnings. Maybe Riley would help that person understand, the way Martha had helped her. "I'll protect the journal," Riley signed to Martha. "I'll document everything I learn, and when the time comes, I'll pass it forward." They hiked back to the cabin as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the snow pink and gold. Riley felt a sense of completeness she'd never experienced before. She'd found her purpose, not just surviving, but understanding, not just hearing differently, but seeing how that difference created strength. That night, Riley added another entry to the journal. December 15th, saw tracks of the white wolf and 3 pups. One pup is white like its parent. The cycle continues. I understand now that I'm part of something bigger than myself, part of a tradition of protection and communication that spans generations. The white wolf taught me that being different isn't a weakness. It's exactly what makes me capable of hearing messages others miss. I'm ready now, ready to honor David's legacy, ready to honor the wolf's trust, ready to teach others what I've learned, that communication transcends every barrier, that paying
Attention saves lives. That we're all connected, human and animal, hearing and deaf, in ways we're only beginning to understand. She closed the journal and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere in those mountains, the white wolf was teaching its pups to read the snowpack, to sense danger, to communicate across species boundaries. Somewhere out there, the next chapter of this story was beginning. And Riley Morgan, 8-year-old deaf girl who had saved 43 lives by listening with her whole body, was ready for whatever came next. 3 years later, January 2027. Riley Morgan was 11 years old when she returned to the Colorado mountains as a teacher instead of a student. The spring semester had just ended, and she'd spent the entire school year preparing for this moment. She stood at the edge of a forest clearing, snow crunching under her boots, her breath fogging in the cold mountain air. Beside her stood Martha Hendricks, now 78 but still strong, still watching over these mountains with protective intensity. Emma was there too, along with a small group from the Colorado Wildlife Conservation Program. And there was someone new, a 10-year-old boy named Connor Hayes, clutching his mother's hand, his eyes wide with fear and wonder. Connor was deaf, like Riley, and 2 weeks ago he'd seen a white wolf outside his family's mountain cabin,
The wolf had appeared 3 nights in a row, always at the same time, always staring at Connor's window. His parents had dismissed it as coincidence, as imagination, as anything except what it actually was. A warning, a choosing, a beginning. Riley had gotten the call from Emma 5 days ago. "There's a boy. He's seeing the white wolf. We think it might be one of the pups you saw 3 years ago, now grown. It's choosing him. But he's scared. He doesn't understand. We thought maybe you could help." Now Riley knelt in the snow in front of Connor, signing carefully. "I know you're scared. When the white wolf first chose me, I was scared too. But I learned something important. The wolf isn't there to hurt you. It's there because you have a gift the wolf recognizes." Connor's hands trembled as he signed back. "What gift? I can't hear. I'm broken." Riley felt her heart clench. She'd thought the same thing once, before January 19th, 2024, changed everything. "You're not broken. You're special. You feel things others miss. You notice details they overlook. The wolf knows that. It chose you because you can understand what it needs to communicate." Connor's mother, Sarah Hayes, watched the conversation through tears. Emma translated for her. "Thank you for coming. Connor's been having nightmares. He thinks something bad is going to happen." "Something probably is," Riley signed honestly. "The wolves don't appear unless there's danger. But that's okay. That's why they choose people like us. So we can help." Martha approached, her hands now fluent in ASL after 3 years of daily practice. She signed directly to Connor. "The white wolf is part of a family that's been protecting these mountains for generations. One of them protected me when I was young. One protected my son David before he died. One protected Riley 3 years ago. Now one is protecting you. It's an honor, even though it doesn't feel like it yet." Connor looked at Riley with desperate hope in his eyes. "Will you teach me? Will you show me what to do?" Riley smiled. "That's why I'm here." Over the next week, Riley worked with Connor daily. She taught him how to feel vibrations in the ground, how to notice subtle changes in animal behavior, how to trust the sensations his body registered, even when his mind said they were impossible. She showed him David's journal, now filled with her own entries documenting the 3 years since the avalanche. "You'll add your own entries someday," Riley signed to Connor. "You'll document what you learn, and someday you'll teach the next person the wolf chooses. The tradition continues through us." Connor read the journal with reverent attention. "David died saving people. You saved 43 people. What if I can't? What if I fail?" Riley sat beside him, signing with the wisdom of someone who'd faced that same fear. "David saved 7 people and died trying to save more. That wasn't failure. That was heroism. I saved 43 people because I had advance warning and perfect timing. That wasn't superior. That was luck. What matters isn't the number. What matters is that you pay attention, that you trust yourself, that you speak up even when people think you're crazy." She paused, making sure Connor was watching her hands. "The wolf chose you because it trusts you. Now you have to trust yourself." On the 8th day, the white wolf appeared. Not to Riley this time, but to Connor. The boy had been sitting by a window in his family's cabin, watching the forest, when the wolf emerged from the trees. It was magnificent. Pure white fur, glacier blue eyes, larger than any normal wolf. One of the pups Riley had seen 3 years ago, now fully grown, now alpha of its own pack. Connor's hands shook as he signed to Riley, who sat beside him. "It's here. It's really here." "Go outside," Riley signed. "Slowly. Let it see you're not afraid." Connor's parents watched anxiously as their son bundled up and stepped out into the cold. Riley followed, keeping distance, letting this moment belong to Connor and the wolf. The animal watched the boy approach, tilting its head in that eerily familiar gesture Riley remembered so well. Connor stopped 20 feet away. The wolf took 3 steps forward. Connor held his ground. The wolf lowered itself into a play bow, the universal signal of non-aggression. Connor, remembering what Riley had taught him, sat down in the snow. They stayed like that for 10 minutes, boy and wolf, studying each other, building trust, creating a connection that transcended every boundary between species. Riley watched with tears in her eyes, remembering her own first meeting with the white wolf. The cycle continued. The tradition lived on. That night, Connor felt it. The vibration, the warning. He sat up in bed, his heart racing, his hands pressed against the floor. Riley was in the guest room, and she felt it too. They met in the hallway, both signing frantically. "The mountain," Connor signed. "Something's wrong with the mountain." Riley grabbed her emergency pack, the one she'd kept ready for 3 years. "We need to check the ridge. There's a group of backcountry skiers camping up there. 8 people. If there's avalanche danger..." They woke Connor's parents, woke Martha and Emma in the neighboring cabin. Within minutes, a rescue plan was forming. Martha contacted the ski patrol. Emma called emergency services. Riley and Connor guided them to where they'd felt the vibrations strongest. The white wolf was already there, standing at the edge of a dangerous slope, its pack surrounding it. The wolf looked at Connor, then at Riley, then back at Connor. The message was clear. This is his test. This is his moment. Connor approached the ski patrol leader, a man named Rodriguez, who'd been working these mountains for 20 years. Connor signed, and Riley translated. "The slope is unstable. The snowpack has weak layers from temperature fluctuations. If those skiers are up there when it breaks..." Rodriguez looked skeptical. "Kid, we assessed that slope 2 days ago. It's rated low risk." "Conditions changed," Riley signed for Connor. "The wolf knows. It can sense instability before your instruments detect it. Please, trust him. Trust what he's telling you." Rodriguez looked at Riley, recognition dawning. "You're the girl from Silverpoint Lodge, the one who saved all those people." Riley nodded. "I was 11-year-old Connor then. Now he's the one the wolf chose. If you didn't believe me 3 years ago, 43 people would be dead. Don't make that mistake twice." Something in Rodriguez's face shifted. He radioed his team. "Alpha 2, this is base. Recommend immediate evacuation of the North Ridge camping area. Mark it high risk until further assessment." The evacuation took 40 minutes. 8 skiers were located and brought down safely. They complained about their trip being interrupted. They grumbled about overreaction. Until the slope assessment came back 3 hours later, confirming what Connor and Riley had sensed. The snowpack was critically unstable. One more day of temperature fluctuations and the entire face would have come down. The skiers who'd been complaining became the skiers offering thanks. Rodriguez shook Connor's hand with newfound respect. "You saved 8 lives today, son. That's something to be proud of." Connor signed to Riley, his hands shaking with adrenaline and relief. "I did it. The wolf trusted me, and I didn't fail." Riley pulled him into a hug. "You were perfect. David would be proud. The wolf is definitely proud, and I'm so proud of you." That night, Connor made his first entry in the journal. Riley watched as his careful handwriting filled the page. January 28th, 2027. The white wolf chose me. I didn't understand why at first. I felt broken, damaged, less than everyone else. But Riley taught me that being deaf isn't a disability. It's a different ability. Today, I saved 8 people because I could feel what others couldn't. The wolf was right to trust me. I'm ready now, ready to carry on David's legacy, ready to honor Riley's example, ready to listen with my
whole body to warnings others miss. The tradition continues through me. The media attention that followed was familiar to Riley, but new to Connor. News crews arrived, interviews were requested. The story of 2 deaf children chosen by wolves to save lives captured public imagination. But Riley made sure Connor understood something crucial. "The attention will fade," she signed to him. "The interviews will stop.
People will move on to the next story. But the wolf's trust? That's forever. That's what matters. You're part of something bigger than headlines now. 2 months later, Riley received an invitation from the National Deaf Association. They wanted her and Connor to speak at their youth conference. 300 deaf children and teenagers would be in attendance. The theme was Different Abilities, Equal Value. Standing on stage with Connor beside her, Riley signed her speech to a silent room filled with understanding eyes. 3 years ago, I thought being deaf meant I was missing something, that I was less than other people, that I'd never be special. Then a white wolf chose me to receive warnings that saved 43 lives. Not despite my deafness, but because of it. She gestured to Connor. This year, a new white wolf chose Connor. He saved 8 more lives. The wolves don't choose people who can hear. They choose people who can understand. People who experience the world through multiple senses. People who pay attention to details others miss. Her hands moved with passionate intensity. We are not disabled. We are differently abled. And sometimes, the world desperately needs our different abilities. Never apologize for being deaf. Never wish you were different. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. And someday, when something important needs your special way of experiencing the world, you'll be ready. The audience's hands waved in thunderous applause. Riley saw young faces filled with pride instead of shame, confidence instead of doubt. She'd given them what the white wolf had given her, permission to be different and know that difference was valuable. Spring became summer. Riley turned 12. She spent 2 weeks at a wildlife conservation camp, learning about animal behavior and communication. She studied wolf pack dynamics, animal cognition, and cross-species understanding. Everything she learned deepened her appreciation for what the white wolf had taught her. In August, Martha called with news. The white wolf has been seen near another family's property. A young girl, 7 years old, also deaf. The cycle continues faster than I expected. Are you ready to mentor again? Riley felt a surge of purpose. Always ready. That's what I'm here for now. This became her calling. Over the next year, Riley worked with 3 more children chosen by white wolves. Each one was deaf or hard of hearing. Each one initially felt broken or less than. Each one learned to see their different ability as strength, and each one saved lives when the warnings came. Riley documented everything in David's journal, which had become a comprehensive guide to understanding the white wolves' communication methods. She noted patterns, documented techniques, created a training program for newly chosen children. Martha started calling her the Wolf Whisperer. Riley preferred the
translator. She stood between 2 worlds, interpreting for both sides, helping wolves and humans understand each other. On January 19, 2028, exactly 4 years after the Silverpoint Lodge avalanche, Riley returned to the site. A memorial had been built there, a simple stone marker reading, "In honor of those who listen when others cannot hear. May we never forget that communication transcends every boundary." Riley stood before the memorial with Connor and the 3 other children she'd mentored. 5 deaf children, chosen by white wolves to carry on a tradition of protection that stretched back generations. 5 children who'd learned that being different wasn't a weakness, but a superpower. The white wolves appeared as if summoned. 5 of them, each one bonded to one of the children. They stood at the forest edge, watching their chosen humans with those intelligent, knowing eyes. Riley signed to her group, "We are the chosen ones. Not because we're better than anyone else, but because we can understand what others miss." David started this tradition. He passed it to me. I'm passing it to you. And someday, you'll pass it forward. The wolves trust us. Now we must prove worthy of that trust. The 5 children and 5 wolves stood in the snow together, connected by something that transcended species, transcended language, transcended every barrier humans had created. Connected by understanding, by respect.
by the knowledge that true communication happened in silence as often as in sound. Riley felt complete. She'd found her purpose. She'd honored David's legacy. She'd proven that being deaf was a gift, not a curse. And she'd helped other children discover the same truth. As the sun set behind the mountains, painting the snow gold and pink, Riley added one final entry to the journal. January 19th, 2028. 4 years ago today, the white wolf saved my life and the lives of 43 others. Today, I understand that it wasn't just about that one avalanche. It was about starting something bigger, a tradition of deaf children chosen to protect others, a proof that different abilities create different strengths, a message that needs to spread. We are not less than, we are exactly enough. The white wolves know it. Now the world is beginning to understand it too. David, if you can see this, know that your legacy lives on through all of us, through every child who learns to listen with their whole body, through every life saved by paying attention to what others miss, through every moment of understanding that bridges the gap between species. Your tradition continues, and it will never end. 5 years later, January 2033. Riley Morgan was 16 years old when she received the call that changed everything again. She was in her junior year of high school, already accepted into early admission programs for wildlife biology at 3 universities. The call came from a number she didn't recognize. International. Norway. The video call connected. A woman.
Appeared on screen, maybe 40 years old, with kind eyes and silver-streaked blonde hair. She signed in International Sign Language, which Riley had learned years ago. My name is Dr. Astrid Larsen. I'm a wildlife researcher in Norway. 2 months ago, I documented something impossible. A pack of white wolves in the Arctic Circle. Pure white, blue eyes, exhibiting intelligence far beyond normal wolves. They've been warning our research station about ice shelf instability. 3 times now, they've given us advance notice that saved our team. Riley's heart started racing. White wolves? In Norway? Dr. Larsen nodded. But here's what I need to tell you. I've been researching these wolves' lineage. DNA analysis suggests something remarkable. These aren't just related to the Colorado white wolves. According to genetic markers, they're identical, exactly identical, across 5,000 miles and multiple generations. Riley's mind reeled. That's impossible. Wolves don't live that long. They can't be the same bloodline unless they're not just wolves, Dr. Larsen finished. Unless there's something else happening here. Something we don't understand yet. Riley, I've read about you, about Connor, about all the children chosen by white wolves. You're not the only ones. There are others. Japan, Russia, Alaska, Chile, all over the world, all deaf children, all chosen by white wolves, all saving lives. Riley felt goosebumps rise on her arms. What are you saying? Dr. Larsen leaned closer to the camera. I'm saying this is bigger than we thought. Much bigger. The white wolves aren't just protecting mountains. They're protecting humanity. And they're building a network of protectors. You're part of something global, Riley. Something that's been happening for centuries. And I think it's time we all met. Time we compared notes. Time we understood what we've really been chosen for. The screen went black, leaving Riley staring at her own reflection. Outside her window, fresh snow began to fall. And somewhere in those mountains, she knew the white wolf was watching, waiting, preparing her for whatever came next. The tradition didn't just continue, it was evolving, and Riley's story was far from over.